But yeah, man. So I want to switch gears, man. Since we're being a little bit nostalgic, and just a couple things that I witnessed while being here in the DC area this week, just brought back so many memories of, being a young baseball player, and just the childhood, having that childhood awe of the game of baseball. By the time that this episode airs, we will be uh probably in the same week as what we call the Midsummer Classic, also known as the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. Just that name, Midsummer Classic, man, just does something to me.
Man, that's a nostalgic. Just 3 words of nostalgia. Midsummer
Yeah,
Classic. Like I don't know, man. That's just a dope title, man. Like you can name anything Midsummer Classic, and it's gonna seem like, oh, I want to go there.
yeah,
It could
yeah.
be a dinner, Midsummer Classic dinner. Oh, I want to
Right.
go there.
I want to
Midsummer
go.
Classic play. Oh, I want to go there.
Yeah, it sounds like something that you definitely want to be a part of, man. And the All Star Game is just one of those things, man, that just is a part of our childhood, our adulthood is just a part of our fandom of baseball. It's
hmm
something that we look forward to. I remember going to baseball games before the All Star Game, and the ushers would hand out ballots, like
hmm
literally
Yeah.
paper ballots, and
Yeah.
they had to poke
The
holes
punch.
in the player.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to punch holes. So you had the hanging chads. So
Yeah.
you had to punch holes and turn them back in, and that's how you voted. Now
hmm
everything is online, or you scan a code on your phone or whatever. But that did something to me because I wanted to see my favorite players in that lineup. When they come out for the national anthem and you see all the players lined along, the first and third base lines. I wanted to make sure that my favorite players were there. I wanted to make sure that on the National League side, there were a lot of Giants there. On the
hmm
American League side, there were a lot of A's there. And so I was making sure some years I would just select only the A's players in the American League and only the
Right.
Giants players in the National League.
Yeah.
But then, as I started developing love for other players, yeah, I'm going to select the Cal Ripken here. I'm going to select the Ken Griffey Jr. here. And so that was just, it was just a part of, the love for baseball. And then, you know, the days leading up to the All-Star game. So, in the middle of the week, Major League Baseball had the All-Star break, where there were no games. So you knew the All-Star game was now taking center stage.
hmm
And I remember being excited about the All-Star game before there was a home run derby.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there was just the game,
hmm
and just seeing some of my favorite players lined up, ready to play, man. And it just brought so much excitement. And then they brought in the home run derby, and that was like the night before, that
hmm
took the stage, man. And so just things like that. But for you, man, when you think about the All-Star game, who is that first black All-Star that you remember watching?
Ooh. Um. First black all star. If I could think, oh man. I mean, I was watching baseball as a kid a long
Yeah.
time, but I think the first black all star that I remember paying attention to is probably why I started watching him was Ozzie
Mhm.
Smith.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
Ozzie Smith was
Perennial
a
all-star.
perennial all star at shortstop. Man, when he was
Yeah.
in the league, he was almost every year. Well, probably about 7 or 8 years consistently, he was an all star at shortstop, a
Mhm.
starter. The starting
Yeah.
shortstop. And so
The
I think
wizard.
yeah, because like you never, first of all, the All Star is one game in the middle of the summer with the
Mhm.
best baseball players on the planet playing it.
Yeah.
And you got to when you didn't get to see all these other teams, we got to see the A's and the Giants in the Bay Area, but we didn't get to see everybody else
Yeah.
unless the Giants or the A's played them.
Mhm.
And then even when they did, we didn't get to see all of those games and all of those moments. Sports
Mhm.
Center wasn't as big as it is now. We didn't have the
Yeah.
internet and none of this stuff, so we didn't get to if we didn't view it with our own eyes while it was happening, we probably just didn't see it. you
Right.
know. And then we get to the point where uh uh Ozzie Smith starts making all-star appearances, and you're in this single game in the middle of the summer, and you got this one guy that's in out of the league, one person that's doing these
Mm-hmm.
magic tricks as he's running out on the field. I'm talking about
Yes.
leaping, jumping, flipping, back
Backflip.
flipping in the
Yeah.
middle of the game, back doing a black. He just standing there, just do a backflip, like
Mm-hmm.
in between pitches,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what that drew me to the All Star game because I
Yeah.
knew Ozzie Smith was going to do something special. I didn't get to see the
Mm-hmm.
Cardinals, growing up.
Right. Right.
I didn't get to see them,
Yeah.
but I saw Ozzie Smith on the All Star game. So I
Mm-hmm.
do. That's an interesting question because it took me a minute to think about it, but he was a reason I was tuning in for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, man. If for me, man, like I'm thinking of like some all-star games, like in the early '80s, and like you said, the all-star game gave you an opportunity to see players that you normally wouldn't see, and
Hmm.
so I'm like, oh, he's an all-star. I'd never heard of him, but now when I see him, I recognize him, and so
Hmm.
I remember my earliest, man, the all-star that an all-star that I remember, and I believe it was like the first black all-star that I like, oh, it's a black guy in the all-star. Even though, in the '80s there were many of them, but for some
Hmm.
reason this guy just caught my eye because it was the first time I saw him. And
Hmm.
he's not super well known, but he had a long career, a great career. He was very, very consistent. It was Al Oliver, and at the time he played for the Montreal Expos.
Hmm.
Al
Hmm.
Oliver, I believe he
Forgot
played
about
first base,
Yeah.
and in that All Star game was actually, and he after he played for the Orioles, I remember he played for the Seattle Mariners after that, and so now he's playing for against one of the A's division rivals. So I'm seeing him, more regularly, because there wasn't no interleague back then. So the A's and the Mariners played, probably like 8 times. They
Yeah.
had 8 different series, for each year. So you saw the A's versus the Mariners
Wow.
constantly throughout the year. And I remember seeing Al Oliver and how consistent he was. He wasn't, he hit a home run every now and then, but he was just consistent when it comes to, he gonna get you a good base hit. He gonna get you a good, he gonna bring in a run with a, a double in the right field gap, every now and then. But it was first seeing him in an All Star game that I end up following his career. So I remember him, playing for the Expos. I remember him playing for the Mariners. And it just made me, just follow his career and kind of look up to him a bit, like we talked about earlier. It made me, see myself in him.
Yeah.
Oh, here's someone else playing the game that I can see myself. Yeah, I idolize other players, like Ricky Henderson, Dave Stewart, and guys like that. But when every time I saw Al Oliver, he was like one of the OGs, for me,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
Ricky Henderson was in the prime of his career, and at this time, Al Oliver was on the back end of his career, so he was on his way out. And so I looked at Al Oliver as one of those OGs, man. So shout out to Al Oliver,
Yeah.
man. That was definitely someone I looked up to.
Yeah, I remember Al Oliver, man, and I don't remember him as vividly as you did. With
Hmm.
you watching the A's and the A's being an American League team, and me being
Yeah,
a fan of the Giants being a National League team. Again, I'm seeing more National League players than I'm seeing American League players at that time because
right.
I'm watching National League based games.
Exactly.
Another person though too that just stuck out to me that I do recall, you know, seeing in an All Star game that made me like pay attention to him
Hmm.
after the All Star game was Andre Dawson. Andre
Oh
Dawson was
yes,
such a big, I mean,
yes,
humongous dude at the plate. He looked like a big lumberjack at the plate.
right.
And he had that sock when they wore that solid color top with the pinstripe pants.
Hmm. Hmm.
Man, and his home runs used to just be towering home runs.
Yeah.
Like I do recall, like every time, like you said before, I think you said, you know, we were talking on last episode how every time Jose Canseco stepped to the plate, you were tuning in, right? That's
Hmm.
how it was. Whenever I saw Andre Dawson, I'm like, oh, I want to
Same.
see this at bat. I want to see this at
Yeah.
bat. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he was another one that
Yeah, he
uh
was definitely one of those dudes. Definitely for me. as well. Could hit for power, hit for
Mm-hmm.
average as well, man. Andre Dawson, he really doesn't get the credit that he deserves, man. I believe,
Mm-hmm.
I may be wrong, so someone out there correct me, but I believe he had a MVP year as well.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, Andre Dawson, it was he was that dude, man. But I think because we're definitely surpassing an hour already, so we don't want to have this episode go too long. So we're gonna make a part two. Just talking about all stars, black all stars and things like that. But
Yeah.
we can't get out of here, as we head into the seventh inning stretch. We cannot get out of here without talk when we talk about all stars about our most memorable experience. I don't know about you. I never had the pleasure of going to an all star game and seeing an all
Mm-hmm.
star game in person, but growing up, I watched every All Star game. Yeah, as an adult, I may have missed a few, here and there, as life happens. But as a kid, man, growing up, and even in my early 20s, oh, I'm locked in every mid July, when watching the All Star game, and so there are
Mm-hmm.
so many great memories that I'm sure we both have. But what's that one memory of All Star games past that sticks out to you?
Man, right away, the soon as I think about All Star games, and I start thinking about the nostalgia of the games that I've seen, the first thing that comes to mind is Torri Hunter jumping
Yeah.
over the center field fence, robbing Barry Bonds' home run in the All Star game, and the reaction after that between Bonds and Torrey Hunter, man, that I'll never forget. That man, I was super excited when Bonds hit. I was like, yeah.
Yeah,
And
cause
then
you
when
knew it
Torrey
was
Hunter
gone.
caught it, I knew it's out of here. This a home
Yeah,
run. It wasn't. It didn't barely. It was a home run. Torrey Hunter had to dang near climb the fence
yeah,
and extend and back over the fence like
yeah.
this to rob that home run. But he did it. Almost broke his back trying to rob that home run, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But he did it, and so then it was like the excitement of the hit, then the excitement
Yeah,
of the catch, and then
yeah,
like I think that was like the third out. So right away they're coming back into the dugout, and Bonds meets him and
yeah,
picks him up on his shoulder, sort of thing, and man, the
yeah.
nostalgia of that, like I love that moment, man. I love that moment.
Me too, man. I loved it for so many reasons because for one, Torrey Hunter at that time, was the young up and coming kid, with the Minnesota Twins, and Barry Bonds is Barry Bonds.
Yeah,
So, but
everybody.
and so you saw two things. You saw the threat that Barry Bonds was at the plate. I don't even
Mhm.
remember who was pitching because that moment you just totally forgot about who was pitching. But
Yeah.
whoever was pitching, they were a dominant pitcher. They were an all
They were
star.
all-star pitchers, so it was a
Yeah,
top pitcher for sure.
exactly. And of course this was
Probably like
early in the
Randy
game.
Johnson or
It
Roger
it
Clemens
had to
or
be, yeah,
Andy
because
Pettit, one of them kind of guys.
yeah, absolutely. And this was early in the game because Barry Bonds was a starter. Torrey Hunter was a starter. So this was early in the game. So this wasn't like somebody who made the reserve team.
No,
This was a top pick for the All Star
absolutely.
team. But yet here
Absolutely.
Barry Bonds hitting a bomb straight away center off of that pitcher. So you saw Bonds' power on display and what he could do at the plate and why he was so feared at the plate. But
Mhm.
then you saw the athletic prowess of a young Torrey Hunter. Like
Mhm.
Torrey Hunter had did that so many times before that moment in games
Right.
with the Twins. I've seen I remember seeing Torrey Hunter run down balls that should have been doubles or triples in the gap. But
Oh,
he
yeah.
had so much speed that he ran them down. I saw
Mhm.
him, rob people of home runs several times. So he was known for this, but to do that on the world's biggest stage,
Mhm.
against the world's best
Best
player,
hitter. Yes. Man.
that was amazing. And to see, after he made that catch, Torrey Hunter with this big grin on his face, and
Mhm.
Bonds go out to center field to meet him and lift him up over his shoulder. it did one thing for me. It showed brotherhood on display.
Yeah,
Like we
man.
may play on different teams. We play in different leagues. I'm National League, you're American League, but we're also, when it comes down to it, there's a kinship here. There's a
Yeah.
brotherhood here, and so you saw that on display because Barry probably said something as he picked him up. Probably said something in his ear like that big brother type of thing. Man, you should
Yeah.
have robbed it. You should have let me have that. Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
grilling the kid. Or something like that. But it was just beautiful to see, man. And so yeah, that's definitely one of my top baseball all-star moments as well. I
I
think
know
for
you
me
had. I know
though,
you, man. You seen a lot of All-Star games, so I know you
I've
didn't.
seen a
You got
lot.
a moment.
I've seen a lot.
What's your
So
moment?
I actually have two, and one isn't actually in the game. Um, Another Barry Bonds moment actually, but that home run derby with Bonds and McGuire
Mm,
in
yeah.
Philadelphia, I believe. I can't
Yeah.
remember. I can't remember the year. But it was.
It
I
was
think it was
bomb.
shortly after Barry became a San Francisco Giant.
Mm-hmm.
So it had been maybe like 96, 97, but it was a Philadelphia All-Star game. And the finals came down to Barry Bonds versus Mark McGuire. First, Bay Area. You
Yeah.
know.
Giants and A's, man. Oh my God.
So for that reason alone,
We
I'm
got
like,
the power.
hey, we got the power. Man, it don't matter who win. The Bay Area wins. Stand
Bay
up
Area
to the
won.
Bay.
We was happy. That's the final. We won.
We won.
It don't even matter who. It don't matter who win it. We won.
Exactly, man. So, and then they had to go in. They had to go into like I guess home run derby overtime, a hit off, because they kept going. They kept going tit for tat. They kept, none of them was letting up. And I know they were gassed. It was middle of summer. This is when the home run derby was in the daytime, like a 1:00 start. Yeah. So it's hot out there. They sweating. They bringing out Gatorade for them so they get rehydrated, man. And so they just battle it, man. It was like neither one was letting up. You hit a dong, I'm hitting one. You hitting two, I'm hitting two. And so they went at it, man, for the longest. And then finally they went sudden death. And when Bonds hit that winning home run, and when he swung at the crack of the bat, he knew that was it. And the way he just dropped his bat, it's over. Like, that was the dopest thing to me, to see Bonds hit that dong and just drop that bat like, it's done.
Finally.
Done.
Over.
He didn't do the Vince Carter thing where it's over.
Yeah.
But just by dropping the bat is the same thing as it's over. Man, that was so
what he
dope.
did. That was dope, man. That was an iconic moment, because the history, and that's why when we talked about, Barry Bonds being, even in Mark McGuire's case, in the Hall of Fame, there's so many moments that, like, if you eliminate them, you can't talk about the home run derby that year.
Absolutely.
Not with
Absolutely
any kind of glorification to it, because you're not acknowledging them as great. But man, that was probably the greatest home run derby ever, because of how
in my eyes it was. Yeah, in my eyes that was the greatest. Yeah,
absolutely. And the two people that were in it, and the fact that they were crosstown rivals in two different leagues,
right?
But in the same location in the Bay Area, man.
Right.
And the conversation that could have been around, what they was doing or not doing, but at the end of the day, we see who's still standing, no matter what. Yeah.
For anyone who's not like a baseball historian or just nostalgist like I am, or maybe just not a big baseball fan, maybe basketball is your thing, you could compare that baseball home run derby with Bonds versus McGuire equates to the slam dunk contest with Jordan and Dominique Wilkins.
I already knew where you was going.
You knew where I was going.
I knew exactly where you was going. That's exactly.
It was on that level.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So if you don't understand the magnitude of Bonds versus McGuire in the home run derby, just go to Jordan versus Dominique in the slam dunk contest. Same level. same
Exactly.
level. So
Exactly.
that one is probably one of my top moments. I got two more real quick because they just came to mind. Randy Johnson, when he threw that ball at John Kruk's head, 100 miles per hour straight to
Yeah.
the head, first pitch.
Yeah.
He was leading off, and he threw that thing at his head, and John Kruk backed out. He's like, "Y'all better get somebody else up here. I'm not
Yeah.
facing this dude.
Are you serious? You serious
Like,
now?
this is supposed to be an exhibition."
Yeah, he
I'm
want
thinking about that
war.
Martin episode. We ain't fighting for
When he
real.
was
This supposed to
fighting
Tommy
Tommy
Hitman
Hearns.
Hearns. This ain't supposed to be. This is a charity event.
For real, man. That's funny, bro.
Man, but I could tell, that's what John Kruk was thinking, man. This is supposed to be for fun, man. And you going
For
at my
real, what we
head at
doing?
over 100 miles an hour, man. You
What we doing?
6'7", you look like you 8 feet tall on this mound.
Man, yeah. Come
So
on,
that
man.
one, that one was just one of those entertainment moments, and it really set the tone for the game. Like Randy Johnson looked like this is a game, and I ain't out here for fun. Like we want to win this thing,
Yep.
And I think that was actually it might have been one of the first years where they started. The winner of the All-Star game got home field in the playoffs. So if American League won the All-Star game, whoever is the American League champion got home field in the World Series. So
and that might have been probably the same year the Diamondbacks went to the World Series. Because Randy was like, "Oh, we getting ready to have home field advantage. I'm getting in y'all head from first pitch. I'm coming at your head first pitch."
Exactly, man. So that's one of those memorable moments. And just lastly, one last one was the moment where they had the All-Star game at Fenway Park, and they brought out Ted Williams. They brought him out. This was close to the end of his life, so he couldn't stand for long. Couldn't walk. So they brought him out in a golf cart, and to see players from both sides, like they didn't just stand at the edge of the dugout clapping, like they all came out and surrounded Ted Williams. Like this was the god of baseball, and in many cases he was, because he was such a great hitter, not a home run hitter, but a great hitter. One of the few guys who consistently batted over 300, and almost had a season where he batted 400. So I remember as a kid going to the library and checking out his book, the Art of Hitting by Ted Williams. And I read that book like it was a Bible. And so to see all these players, multimillionaires in their own right, all stars, they're all stars, but they were like children sitting at the feet of Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And they just let them have that moment, and you could see Ted was saying something to the players, and all of them were leaning in and listening to what he had to say. I wish they had a microphone or a camera that was in that circle, because I would love to have known what Ted was telling those players. But you could tell like he was instilling some knowledge and some wisdom. This wasn't just like, oh, thank you for this honor. He was talking to them like a grandfather of the game. And players were kneeling down, leaning in so that they can hear that. Man, that was such a beautiful, beautiful moment to see, because a lot of these, these players didn't grow up watching Ted Williams. Ted Williams' career ended well before they probably picked up their first bat, but they know of him. They know this, the legacy. They know the history, and they know how amazing of a hitter that he was. And just to take that moment to lean in, I think of it the same way. I had the privilege to meet Willie Mays once at a banquet, a baseball banquet in the Bay Area. And he was the keynote speaker, and he came around to every table of all the players and just introduced himself. No, we're not really introduced because everybody knows Willie, but just to say hello or whatever, back then, we didn't have, phones on our cameras. We didn't have phones, that we could
Right.
carry around. So I wish I would have had a chance to snap a picture. But what was more valuable than a picture was the fact that when he came to my table, he came and sat down. He sat down and had, it wasn't a long conversation, but, a good, 2-3 minute conversation with one of the GOATs. Willie, say hey kid Mays is sitting and having eye contact conversation with me. And I was such in awe. And he just started talking to me, man, and just started sharing knowledge, not how to play the game, but how to navigate through life through the game of baseball. He said, man, he was just telling me, you're a young brother playing this game, so they're going to hold you to a different. I'll never forget his words, man. It almost makes me emotional. I'll never forget his words. He was just like, man, you're a young brother playing this game. He said, what are you? It's like he could look at you and tell what type of player that you were. What are you, a lefty? I said, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I am. He said, oh yeah, you're a lefty. Yeah, they gonna be they gonna be looking at you. So you got to bring your best every single day. You got to keep showing up. And he was just saying things like that. And he said, what do you play? First base and center field? I was like, this man is truly a God. He is reading my eyes, and reading my mind. I said, yes, sir. I play both. He said, well, I play center field. I said, yes, sir. I know too well. He said, well, when you're out there, you got to stay locked in. He didn't use the term locked in, but, he's basically just saying, you got to stay focused. But every word that he was saying, it was almost like holy baseball scripture.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that. So for me, being a young player, having that moment with a grandfather of the game, for them, these future Hall of Famers in their own right, to have that moment with Ted Williams, I can only imagine what that was like. So, all the moments that we mentioned was just
Probably
so
like a
so
passing of the
dope.
torch,
Yes.
like while they were leaning down, he was passing on the torch of knowledge, the passing on the torch of legacy, passing on the torch of leadership. Like, he knows that he's at the end of his his years
Mm-hmm.
on the planet at that point, and he's like, before I leave here, I want to make sure that these young men understand
Absolutely.
what needs to be carried forward.
Mm-hmm.
That was an iconic moment. I do remember that moment. Like I said,
Yeah.
I was also tuning in to that game and seeing, like, man, they're soaking up some kind of game. I don't know
So
what he's
yeah, they
telling
soaking
them,
up a
but
lot of game,
they
right?
are they weren't just there to say hi and walk back to the dugout.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, they, like you said, they made a campfire around him, man.
Exactly. Exactly, man.
Got
Oh
comfortable.
man. All right, man.